well, let's learn a little bit more about why all of this matters, and talk to Kat in Indonesia. Kat, tell us what's on your mind today.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Kat, and I'm calling in from Indonesia, and I guess I'm a bit of a known troll in the ACA live stream chat. And actually, that has something to do with the topic I'm calling in about today. And it's, I guess I'm calling in about whether it's even possible to move on mentally from childhood religious indoctrination.
Sure.
I'm an atheist, right? But I used to be part of a major Abrahamic religion, and I'm sure you know which one. It's not Christianity; it's the other one. And I found myself that each time I participate in discussion of ethics or discussion of morality, and just very recently I was in this discussion about abortion rights. And even though I know exactly what I think, I know exactly what the right conclusion is, but there is always that part of me, that religious indoctrination remnant that tells me that makes me feel that, hey, you're wrong. Are you really going to believe this? It's all a lie. It's all Western propaganda. You've been lied to. It's just modern day brainwashing and stuff like that. And I guess for context, because of where I'm from, as a kid, I was basically every student had to go through a mandatory religious class from the first grade of elementary school all the way to the first semester of college. And it wasn't even a comparative religion class. No, it was a class where you get taught about the tenets of the religion that you're born into. That is the religion that your parents identify on their ID. Right? So my parents had this one religion, and so I was put into that class, and it had the same, it was as essential as mathematics or science in that I had no option to not take the class. And if I didn't take the class, I simply would not pass because the grade will be 0 and I will not pass. I will not even pass elementary school.
No, I deeply relate. I grew up in a education system. My schooling involved a lot more hermeneutics and worship and chapel time and everything else than it did mathematics, than it did history, than it did science. So I definitely appreciate those past experiences and how difficult it is to move on from them. I suppose I am a little bit curious or maybe not clear on what your ultimate question here. Does it really come down to, is it possible to heal? Is it possible to move on? Or did you have something else in mind?
Yeah, that's exactly my question. Is it possible to move on from that? It's like I said, I still have that part of me that is begging me to be that religious person back, always there. And I fear that it's getting really hopeless. Like sometimes I fear like it's going to be exactly like with language learning. And as much as I immerse myself in my second language, English, I cannot forget my first tongue, my first language, Indonesian, because it's just been ingrained in my head since I was a kid. And I guess I just called in to get some reassurance, or maybe like you guys have some tips to how I can move on, because when it comes to communities, skeptical communities and so on, we don't really have a lot of those. In fact, we don't have any where I live.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you. And I think I want to absolutely stress that change is not only possible, it's inevitable. Change is already happening. Your views, your beliefs, your values, your thoughts, your emotions, those are going to be different every single moment of every day. And even if there are consistencies, there's always going to be what we might call an evolution. That's not necessarily an evolution in a good direction or a bad direction. It's just true that things are going to change. So ultimately, it becomes about your choices and your responsibilities here. Is it possible for you to change? You are already changing. If you would like to change in a particular direction, that's going to come through effort. That's going to come through choices. There is no way that I would be a religious trauma therapist if I didn't think that it was possible to heal from some of these things. And last week on the Atheist Experience, when SR quoted a very specific Bible hymn, even though he only mentioned like 2 lines of dialogue from that hymn, I heard it in my mind for like the next hour of my car ride. I know that there are people listening right now who would get so mad at me if I were just start to say, our God is an awesome God, because that thought is now going to be rattling around in the back of their brain for the rest of the afternoon, perhaps. And that can suck. That can be really painful, but it doesn't say to me that it's impossible to heal or to move on. Just that these thoughts that we have carried with us for a very long time are going to be with us for a very long time. And we can still work to change them, to reduce them, to focus on other things, to change the way that we relate to them, to not be so bothered by them or to have so much distress because of them.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's really reassuring because in your case, it's the verse that kept on ringing in your head even after you got home from it. Like, in my case, it's not just the verses, but also like the bigotry and all the other stuff. Because I'm trans, right? And I have this part of me telling me that I am wrong and all my worldview is wrong. And the worst part about the whole thing is that I put in some effort in changing myself, but at the same time, the people around me are not conducive to that effort. They always give me the weird looks. Like this yesterday, I get invited to this dinner with my colleagues, and the first thing that they asked me was, "Hey, what's your religion?" Right? And I said, "Well, I'm not particularly religious." And they all just gave me that weird looks. And this has happened to me multiple times in the past. This was not the only occurrence. And I guess that's part of the reason why I'm feeling hopeless most times about changing, because the environment, not just myself, it's also the environment. And I don't know, I guess I would like to have an advice to that, because, do keep in mind that I don't live in a desolate first world nation, first world Western democracy where the separation on the state and the church is that clear. Here is more intertwined. And so the people beliefs reflect that. And we still have school prayers. We still have a requirement for people to profess a faith in God in order to be eligible for public office. Is that sorry. Yeah.
No, I hear it. I hear how challenging all of this is. I used music because it's something of a softer thing for us to really talk about in an open forum here. But some of the bigotry, some of the misogyny, all of these really damning and harmful beliefs, the internalized homophobia, so many of these things are a lot harder to shake. And I guess I want to say that there's good news and bad news here, and they're both the same thing, which is that all of us, whether we were born into a faith tradition or into an oppressive culture or whatever else, we all deal with some amount of magical thinking, of irrationality, and of bigotry and prejudice. And it's not a fair share. Certainly there are circumstances and situations that are a lot harder and more difficult to heal from and move on from than others. And certainly your situation sounds really painful and powerful and dire. But the truth is, all of us are on some level working to grow and heal and deconstruct from some of these notions. Some of us are working harder than others. Some of us have more work to do than others. But there's nothing impossible about the place that you find yourself, and there's nothing broken about the person that you are because you've had these experiences. You are a human struggling to grow and heal and thrive just like everybody else. And I hope that you can appreciate that you're not alone in this journey. And there are a lot of resources and things that can be helpful, even if you find yourself remarkably isolated and struggling with a really oppressive circumstance and situation.
Yeah, well, I'd like to thank you for giving me the hope. And I do agree that the resources provided by the by the ACA, the community. It's been really helpful for me to not only to deconvert, but to tell myself that there is indeed people like me out there, and I'm not alone. And I'm not, the alien people make me feel like I said about people around me giving me weird looks wherever I go, whenever I tell them that I'm non-religious. So yeah, thank you, and I really appreciate this show being hosted. Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much, and the very best of luck to you. It makes sense to get discouraged, and I hope that whether that community is online or wherever else, that you aren't feeling like you have to go through all of this alone. We appreciate your call. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Richard, anything that you want to add there at the end?
Yeah, I think I always enjoy listening to you talk when it comes down to kind of your area and the advice that you give to people. I've never been religious. I've never deconverted, so it's great to hear those conversations had and just to sit back and listen. And I think that's a vital skill that a lot of people could benefit from learning, just listening sometimes. And I enjoyed just listening to that. And my only advice on that to anybody in that situation, and anybody in any situation who feels like they're in a kind of hard situation, is remember self-care first and foremost.
Sure. Yeah, that basic hierarchy of needs. There are great resources for helping to break free of some of these ideas, for helping to heal and recover after some of these ideas. But all of that kind of high-minded effort really does start with making sure that you are showering and shaving and eating and sleeping and shitting and taking care of the fundamentals of being a human being. And I think that we so often forget that just caring for our bodies is part of that deconstruction, part of that healing process.